not be misunderstood. When a Trinidadian holidays here, there is no foreign exchange leakage, as there would be if they went to Barbados or Grenada or wherever. That money that is raised here and the jobs that are created here and in Trinidad, because when they're here, they're consuming goods that are manufactured in Trinidad, to me, outweighs any cost or any subsidy that is needed for the average. So again, we were down on the flights that we had pre-COVID, and we need to get back up to those numbers because, as is shown with Carnival coming up now, as of last Monday, we were 76% occupied. But we know we could be higher than that if the flights were easier to come by.
And what is the issue behind why, for a situation like this, where you have, well, it's almost historic, a big carnival in Tobago at this time of the year, and for weeks now, people have been saying, well, you can't get flights if you were trying to book in the last month or so. What do you know to be, what the constraints are, what the realities are?
I don't know is the answer, Andy. I don't know why they're not putting on additional flights. It's an essential service for most of us in Tobago anyway. I mean, it's been very frustrating for me as an individual, and I'm sure for many other people. For most times that I go to Trinidad in the recent past, I've had to overnight in Trinidad for a meeting the following day. And in some cases, two-night stay. The actual cost of, the additional cost for doing business for us to go to Trinidad has zoomed. I mean, it's gone up so much. But I can't answer that question. I want additional flights to Tobago. We know that there's a demand. A number of years ago, we chartered some flights. I actually can't remember how long ago. It must be at least 10 years ago. We chartered some flights from Holland, I think it was. And even then, we couldn't meet demand. So the economic argument is it is better for Trinidadians to come here, spend their money, than it is for them to go to other destinations in the region. And that's the argument.
Yeah. So the hotel occupancy leading up to this carnival, 75%, you say that that 25% could be taken care of if there was a guarantee on greater uplift, airlift.
No, let me just clarify. 76% is confirmed.
Yes.
76% is confirmed. But we have people that the hotels are holding that they will not take the booking because they don't have a confirmed ferry ticket or flight. So we know there is additional demand. Coordinating that is difficult. It's much easier for them just to put a flight on and get those people on those flights. But we know there is additional demand that's not being satisfied because of the lack of seats on the air bridge and the ferry.
What are some of the other issues militating against even greater participation and greater returns to the tourism sector in Tobago, particularly where it comes to getting people in and out? What are some of the issues you're all working to sort of hurdle?
Well, the main one is the in-transit desk, Andy. That one is a major stumbling block for us because we know that there are flights available seats available to the flights in Trinidad that could come here. So that's the main one. The additional one is that we as a destination generally do not spend as much money on tourism as other destinations. So it is a very competitive business. So we have to spend that money very wisely. And that's what we're intending to do. We will spend that money to get the greatest return on investment we can. So the challenges are that in many ways, Trinidad and Tobago still doesn't take tourism as seriously as the other destinations. It has an enormous impact both on employment, job creation through the other sectors, agriculture, manufacturing, all of these things. So, and of course, we also need to encourage foreign direct investment for more rooms. We have the Marriott carded. We have a project in Argyle carded. So that will help us get direct flights from the USA, which has been difficult.
I mean, you've been in this thing for a couple of lifetimes. What continues to militate against putting the investment in as is required from how you all see it?
I think it's typical of an oil and gas economy. My previous life with British Gas, and I've seen this across the world. Oil and gas economies focus on oil and gas, and there's nothing wrong with that, but it doesn't need to be the sole focus. We can build a tremendous tourism industry, both in Trinidad and Tobago. We have a lot to offer. I've recently been to Puerto Rico and Cayman Islands, and it's interesting how much money they make out of tourism and the rates at which they can charge, because for a long time, because of our lack of spend, we've been selling on price rather than demand. And that is something that can be corrected very quickly if the support for tourism was there. It can be and should be one of the main focuses. It certainly should be the main focus for Tobago, which I'm happy to say the THA is focusing on. But it's a struggle because it's very competitive, Andy. This is a very competitive industry. It's very dynamic. As I said earlier, it's incredibly resilient. When you look at 9/11, when you look at 2008, you look at COVID, some of the islands now are reporting greater numbers now than they had in 2019. So it's an incredibly dynamic and resilient industry that creates, as I say, creates a lot of employment, brings in a lot of foreign exchange, and creates a whole string of different businesses that can be supported by tourism.
So explain what you mean when you say you spend on price rather than demand.
Yeah, because we can't compete with the marketing budgets of the other destinations, the only way we can get tour operators and potential guests to switch is by offering better prices. Our rates are generally half the region, and our occupancy has been half the region for many years, for many years. And that can only be corrected if we are at the full front with marketing, and the return on investment would increase. But we do the best we can. We are very pleased that we've got Carnival, because October is normally a dead month. It's usually a terrible month for us. So this has been a real boost, as have all the other activities that have been taking place over the last few months. They've all helped us increase. August was good. We had an average occupancy of 61% for August. So things have improved. I don't want to be gloomy. It is improving, but it can improve so much faster with the in-transit desk, with more money for marketing, and with a more prominent role for tourism in the economy of Trinidad and Tobago.
What do you mean a more prominent role? Because I want to come to that, because you say that there's still some issues in how the whole question of tourism development, tourism promotion is. I want to come to that and ask along the way about that. So we have a Trinidad tourism organization, we have a Tobago tourism organization. In both cases, I've not seen anything reported lately. In both cases, the CEOs of this organization, both organizations, quit their jobs or were moved out. What does that say as to what is happening?
Well, we have a new board in Tobago. We are working when it's practical to work with the Trinidad agency. So we've just done so in Puerto Rico at CHTA Marketplace, which we got a very good reception at. We also did so at the CTO in IATA conference in Cayman Islands. And we will be doing in World Travel Market, which is coming up in the next couple of weeks. So there are opportunities to market the destination. What I mean by a more prominent role is basically, until tourism is taken as seriously as it should be by an economy like Trinidad and Tobago, then we will never have the resources that we fully need, either Trinidad or Tobago. We can make a tremendous economic difference to this economy. As I say, bringing in foreign exchange, creating many jobs, and expanding the network of industries that serve the tourism industry. So it will happen, Andy. I'm sure it will happen in time, as it's happened in other countries that are based on oil and gas. But this is the time to actually really think about this and maximize the use of tourism as a driver for an economy for Trinidad and Tobago, and especially Tobago, because tourism and agriculture basically are mainstays in Tobago. So let's keep our fingers crossed and hope that people see the benefit of tourism.
Yeah, but you know why? What led to the fact that the CEO of Tourism Tobago quit? within weeks, or I'm not sure, I'm trying to remember now which happened before, the CEO in Trinidad quit and then the CEO in Tobago quit, or was it the other way around? And what lies behind that, as best as you could know?
No, he had decided to resign from the position. He already made it clear that he didn't want to renew his contract. And as the new board came in, it was probably the best thing for him to do is to leave at that time so we can start afresh. But that was his personal decision. Mr. Lewis was from St. Lucia. I don't know what his plans are, but you know, we are moving forward very quickly with our plans. We are refocusing the agency, restaffing the agency to make it stronger and more resilient, as things have changed so much, Andy, after COVID-19. Digitalization, the way that people book the things that they want. The interesting thing from the shows that I've been to recently is that we are very in focus. We have the right product for the moment, because people are looking for green and eco destinations. They don't want mass destinations. So we are right on point with what Tobago has to offer. And we hope, and I can come back on after World Travel Market and give you a glowing report of what we've managed to do. I've certainly managed to get new people to sign up, new tour operators to sign up in the last 2 trips. And it's going to be interesting when we are successful with these additional flights, how much better we'll be doing in 12 months' time.
Yeah. Does it matter to your organization what the, let's call it, the look and feel of this new historic Tobago Carnival? Because you're seeing some commentary from people, and we want to talk about that with other people during the course of the week, that this lady who was saying, well, it's the same as in Trinidad, bra and underwear and so on. It's not what some people would have expected and what some people want to see as a Tobago Carnival. Is that an issue for you and your organization?
Andy, this is the first one. So let's see what happens with this one. I'm sure we'll be having a post-mortem on this when it's over, and we'll be able to see what was successful, what was not. It's an excellent opportunity for us, as I say, to be busy in October. I am totally surprised by the excitement and the calls that I'm getting of encouragement for having it. I'm not a mass player, I'm far too old, but I find it exciting. I think this is going to be very interesting. I know the stakeholders are very pleased with this occupancy they're getting. So no, these things, we have to try them out. This is the first year. Let's see how it goes, and things will improve if needed.
Yeah. You referred earlier to well, some new energy behind more hotel room on the island. There have been 1 or 2 that have been talked about by the politicians in Trinidad in the ruling party as to how things are bubbling up in Tobago. But you suggest that there would be even a greater participation by other, you would say, brands, hotel brands in Tobago, if certain things were to be happening.
Yeah, I mean, what we can do when this carnival has taken place, and we have social media content and things, this is something we'll take with us to World Travel Market, because it takes a while for these things to gain momentum in the international markets. But we can really promote this when we go to World Travel Market. And just like with jazz and all the other things that we do, the events tourism is very much in vogue. People now want experiences when they travel. So everything we do in terms of any of the events, the Cycling Classic, the Blue Food, everything we're doing, these experiences are what people are looking for when they come. So we will be promoting all of the things we do. And as I say, we will analyze the carnival, what needs. I'm sure the secretary will be there to drive any changes that are needed to improve things if things aren't as we wanted. But let's let it happen first, Andy.
Yeah. So at the moment, so the sort of sense of excitement, the environment for events and moments that would bring people to Tobago, whether from Trinidad, whether from other Caribbean destinations, or from further afield, that is happening. The sense of a rebounding is there, and it's on the increase, you would say, and because the calendar seems to be more and more coming out where like every other 2 months, every other month, there is some major thing happening, and that's your goal?
Yeah, there are two goals really. The domestic market is driven very heavily by, as you know, we have a lot of public holidays. People come over on those public holidays from Trinidad. So any events, any attractions that we can promote to encourage Trinidadians to come here, that's excellent. The international market, the same. We have to look at what we can promote that excites the people away that will come. And we are in this post-COVID period where things are still very uncertain in how we're going to do these things. So everything we're doing, and this is why we're going to the shows, to actually understand what the originating destinations are thinking and how they're marketing and all of the different things that go on. Because there is a clear indication that people want to travel. There's a clear indication that people want to be together again with their families. But as I say, they're also very high on the agenda as the eco-destination type, not the mass market type destinations. So we are placed for that. And we have to do what we can with the money we have to make sure that message for Tobago gets out there and clear and get these tour operators reintroduced to us. There's been this hiatus over the last 2 years. I actually took part in a virtual world travel market last year, but it doesn't replace the meeting of the people. This business is all about communication and relationships. And it was very interesting for me in Marketplace how everybody was so pleased to see Tobago there, and we were there promoting and just reconnecting. Because don't forget, these tour operators deal with thousands of different hotels across the world. And as soon as they finish talking with me, they go on to another destination and talk to them. So we have to make an impression every time we meet them.
Yeah. So on a scale of 1 to 10, on the question of the ambitions that you're referring to and you're suggesting about making it the best eco-tourism destination there probably could be, where are you at now on a scale of 1 to 10?
We're halfway there. I would say we're halfway there, getting back to some normality. I think by the end of this year, we'll be hopefully 75% there. As I say, I just want to repeat, we've got the Condor flight has been confirmed. That will be coming from November. We have the 2 flights from British Airways coming in, and we want to maximize the availability of that. We have the JFK. We'll be working on that. I hope, and we will be working towards a Scandinavian flight and a Canadian flight so that we can build those markets and getting back in the marketplace. So I think the hoteliers will be pleased. It's been a very tough 2 years. There's no getting away from it. People have suffered greatly. They're in more debt now than they were 3 years ago. So this is going to be a climb to come out of this. If we can get the in-transit desk sorted out and more flights on the air bridge, then I think that will be a tremendous boost to us. But as you know, Andy, I'm ever hopeful.
Yeah. And what do you see as the sign of new excitement or new purposefulness from the current administration as opposed to administrations in the past on this question of putting tourism in Tobago where it should be?
Now you're trying to get me political now. I represent a non-political organization, but yes, I do see a very strong push towards tourism with this new administration, and I think we're very pleased about that.
All right. Are there one or two things that you are trying to get going with this administration that you're hopeful about having delivered?
Well, only the things I've mentioned. I mean, we need help on those, the in-transit, the air bridge, those kind of things, the continued support, financial support for the agency. There is one issue that we have to deal with very soon, and that is the land license issue. If we want to encourage foreign direct investment and the hotel room stock that we need, then we're going to have to do something about this land license, because it's a risk, an added risk that people are not prepared to take. So we will be working with them very closely and monitoring everything that we're doing to make sure that we push tourism forward.
Just remind us about what this land license business is. Is it the same issue that used to be talked about decades ago about the Aliens Landholding Act and that kind of thing?
No, Andy, it's an additional license for Tobago only, where any foreign investor, so any potential hotel investor, for instance, would need to get a land license. That land license is taking a very long time to get. In addition to that, if most of the developments in the region, most of the hotel developments in the region have a real estate element to them to reduce the risk, that means all of those real estate buyers in that resort development would also need a land license, which just adds risk. And as you know, investment is all balancing risk against reward.
Yeah.
And the other islands are booming with investment. They're getting lots of investment, and we're not.
All right, we're going to leave it there, my friend. Thank you very much for talking with us. Chris James, President of Tobago Hotel and Tourism Association.
Thank you, Andy.
See you next time. Take care. We will take a break, and when we come back, well, if there is a Newsday poll, we'll tell you about it. But on the other side of that, we will be talking with Ms. Cavell Joseph Centromere, President of the Human Resources Management Association of Trinidad and Tobago. The discussion in the Parliament about a work-from-home policy, to what extent that ought to be the case and to what extent it is easy to do or not. The minister responsible is saying that there's a challenge because of the number of agencies through which people work in the public service. That could create some problems. We will talk about that. Moments from now, stay with us.
Perfection doesn't happen by chance. Like an artist, the cook selects the main ingredient, one that is worthy of a proud cultural tradition. Trusted to enhance your creations with its richness and versatility. To create a cooking masterpiece, the secret is simple. The brand we know, the brand we trust, the brand our ancestors have been using for generations.
There is only one pure cow brand ghee. Look for the marks of authenticity.
Come travel with us as we explore Diwali across the globe. Diwali is celebrated in many countries worldwide, but do you know the traditions and practices of each nation? From Guyana to Australia, WESN presents Diwali Passport, October 3rd to October 23rd, with replays on October 24th. It's Diwali Passport, a WESN exclusive.
Diwali time again. Come to Prem Singh's Puja Bhavan for all your Diwali essentials. Get your clay diyas, cotton wicks, floating wicks, beautifully decorated imported diyas. And now in stock, our long-lasting, easy-lighting wax diyas. Fasting? We have frozen vegetarian meals, exciting Indian spices and grocery items, decorated mithai boxes, prasad bags, freshly ground elaichi powder, and paper sohari leaves. And don't forget our popular, tasty, mouth-watering mithai. We have simple Diwali Puja guides on CD with a Puja handout, and our helpful staff will assist you with all the required ingredients to perform your Diwali Puja. Get great deals on lantern decorations, electric diya string lights, and Happy Diwali decorations. Visit us at the corner of Watt Street, Kirep, or at St. Ives Street, Chaguanas, opposite the Charleville taxi stand, or call 663-6084. Prem Singh's Puja Bhavan. It's a family tradition, serving the nation and Dharma. Lakshmi Mata's divine blessings to all. For your convenience, both branches are open on Sundays until Diwali.
the continued rise in the price of flour and its impact on the cost of living in Trinidad and Tobago. How should we go about it? I want to ask you, what has been revealed to you about the state of vulnerability in the country because of this exercise and because of what we're going through? Is the government losing the war on the vaccine front?
The discussion should revolve around the common good for the greatest number of people in Trinidad and Tobago.
How do we inculcate a sense of respect and regard for people who may not be of your own political ilk or persuasion?
The communities are now being used by political opportunists. So
when the tables are turned, it's the same way. Okay, this has been 10 Questions. I'm Andy Johnson, and we'll see you next time. Welcome back to the program. Well, one of the things we thought that happened during the period we lived through the COVID was that the world had changed to the point where people are going to be required to work from, and people are going to be expected to be working from home more than was the norm but not so fast. At least that's what we're getting from the minister responsible for public administration in the Trinidad and Tobago government at the moment, Alison West, who's saying that there are challenges, as this matter was being discussed in the Parliament just before, on Friday. As she's saying that one of the reasons is that there are so many different independent commissions which are set up to manage the employment and the performance of people working in the public sector, and that will present a problem. She didn't say it couldn't happen, but there are some people who are seeing it as a negative. Well, if it were the situation that in a lot of cases we got through that period with a lot of people working from home with different kinds of alternative working arrangements, what is required to put in place as a permanent feature of the world of work going forward in Trinidad and Tobago? Cavell Joseph Centromere is the president of the Human Resource Management Association in Trinidad and Tobago. They've had discussions on the matter and their models that we could follow. Not so good to see you.
And to your viewers this morning, thanks for having us.
Well, certainly. I mean, so you were the first person one would have thought about to try and get a different side of this picture. There was a lot of positivity about what transpired during that period. But is it possible to see that the minister is looking at it from how the rubber hits the road, if it's to become a permanent feature of the world of work going forward?
Well, the thing is, Andy, as you started, when the COVID-19 pandemic forced employers all over the world, so not only in Trinidad and Tobago, to send their employees home to work virtually, remote work really, it had a big moment. It's not that it didn't exist before, but it had a big moment. So yes, there was a rush to give employees access, to give them the tools that were necessary to work from home. And more people realize, hey, you know what? Remote work isn't that bad. In fact, some employers reported that they saw an improvement in productivity, employees more focused when not in office. And of course, there was a reduction in the time to commute back and forth between the office and at home, right? So there were some advantages that were realized during the pandemic. More and more you're seeing people advocating for maintaining remote work or work from home, as we call it. And the main reason is also because of the better work-life balance that was experienced. Many remote jobs that were at this point in time, there's a lot more flexibility provided to employees, flexible schedules, which meant that they could have started earlier, they could have ended later on too. You know, the flexibility that was enjoyed during that time assisted employees significantly. There was less time commuting back and forth, and we must recognize that on average, for some people in this country, it takes 2 hours to get from San Fernando into Port of Spain or from the east into Port of Spain. So on average, you're spending 4 hours daily in traffic. We saw that there's some health issues surrounding this as well. It's been connected to high cholesterol, blood pressure, depression and all. So definitely ditching the whole commute back and forth improve people's mental health and physical health as well. Location independence and the fact that you had an opportunity now to stay within your town or your community and work gave some advantage to workers as well during this time. And it improved also essentially what was experienced was a positive impact overall, right? So naturally, for those who experienced this, they wanted it to stay. right? But we must recognize not all jobs could be done remotely. And this is the challenge we're having right now. So it really calls for an understanding that a hybrid system can actually work. We must consider now the hybrid environment, recognizing that not all jobs could be done remotely. And of course, despite some of the advantages realized, both the employer and the employee, there are some challenges that we must factor into this whole arrangement, so it can't be ignored. And naturally for the public service, especially where there is a number of unions that you have to sit and negotiate with, there is the service commissions as well too that provide some kind of, will have some kind of jurisdiction over the terms and conditions of employment, and their collective agreements to revisit as well. Because when we consider remote work, we must factor that it is a change in the conditions of work as well too. COVID allowed us to implement something very quickly, and unions and employees understood at that point in time because it was forced. It wasn't something that the employer just did because the employer felt like doing this. And we all wanted to maintain our jobs, we wanted to contribute and keep our companies going during this time. But now that things are settling back and we've come to realize the impact, the positive impact it has had for some of us, some people actually wanted to stay and remain. So recognizing this, it really calls for the government, union, and business to sit and work out some of the arrangements that could be flexible, because what employees are saying is that they want flexibility more than anything else. And to me, a hybrid system is what is necessary, recognizing that not all jobs could be done remotely. That's one major thing we must factor in. In my organization, for example, Andy, we are in the business of property development, project management, facilities management, and that cannot be done from home, right? But there are roles within our organization where remote work wouldn't impact their delivery. So it's all about the roles and functions that someone performs we have to consider, and also whether or not the organization have the technology, the infrastructure to facilitate a hybrid work environment. So there's a number of changes that if we consider this as a permanent arrangement, that we must sit and iron out before it's implemented as well.
Right. So you
in addition to understanding that managing in a hybrid work environment is very different from managing in a space where everyone working together in an office location, right?
Right.
So it means managers must be retooled and reskilled to now manage employees in a hybrid system or in a remote work environment as well.
Right, and you think the minister is being misunderstood when she seems to be pointing to the challenges that have to be hurdled rather than to say, well, because of these things, it's not going to be possible having to work through the different working arrangements, collective agreements, different unions, different service commissions. My read of it is that she was saying, if we want to go there, these are some of the things we have to consider. Not that's, the list hasn't been exhaustive in any extent, but somehow it comes across as though she's saying, well, this can't work.
Well, it's not that it cannot work, and I would want to believe that is not what she's saying.
Right.
But it does require a lot of work, Andy. It's not going to be as easy as it might be for a private employer in a non-unionized environment, right? And right now we know that labor relations in the country is a bit tense. It requires the unions sitting with government to now iron out those terms and conditions that will naturally change. Because when we look at collective agreements and their articles in collective agreements, for example, that speak to clothing allowance, transport allowances, if I am now working remotely, it means those benefits now ought in a fair workspace to be removed from the agreement, because you're no longer going to incur those costs anymore in terms of traveling back and forth from home to the office, in terms of the need for the uniforms, etc. So it requires sitting and reviewing collective agreements and sitting with the service commissions and modernizing job descriptions and modernizing the workspace to embrace it. Because there's a responsibility that goes along with this, access to the employer's data, technology, consequences for breaches of that as well too, because we cannot have information seeping from the system or being leaked or however you want to describe it. But you are now responsible, as always, because you were responsible for it in the workspace just the same. But there's a challenge now, or a little bit more difficulty when it's being accessed remotely, you're entering into a server, what are the protections you're going to put in place? So it means the infrastructure from an IT perspective must be in place. But when we look at the alternate now, it reduces paper, for example. So if we're talking as a country about sustainability and some of the goals, and we heard the Minister of Planning talk about reducing the digital footprint on the environment by 30%, right? So if that has to happen, this actually could contribute positively to that objective. Less commuting means less gas emissions, right? On the road, we've been hearing a lot of conversation since the budget was read about fuel prices, right? So that helps in bringing the cost down to the employee, one, in terms of having to drive back and forth to work. Then we also have the reduction in paper in a very digitized world. It means a reduction in paper and accepting digital signatures and digital documents as well too. So the infrastructure must be in place to support this. The IT protections, the rules governing, or the code of conduct or code of ethics governing the employer-employment relationship also has to be updated to reflect these changes as well too. But it is not impossible, and I think as a society we must recognize that the environment has changed, the social relationship between the employer and employee has shifted, and there's a social consciousness that has, I mean, it was always there, social justice and all of that was always there, but there's a consciousness that has even increased further because of the pandemic. So as a consequence of that, we should consider putting in systems and come together, all parties who have an interest in this, come together for the greater good here, because our society and our people are evolving, and we cannot want to hold on to the old ways of doing things, but ushering the new, right? Embracing the new that was birthed from this whole experience. And I don't think we should dismiss all the lessons learned during the pandemic, because there were some wins. So why not keep those wins? When you hear business people talk about being able to pay things online and not have to come into offices like NIB or going to BIR, for example, that's a win, right? People want to pay. It's easier for them to do it online. They have access 24 hours. So why not embrace those things as well? Instead of everybody shuffling into port, it's been on the 15th of each month to make these payments, looking for car park, looking for all sorts of things. It also contributes to decentralization, Andy, into towns and communities, because if people are in their towns and communities working, it means the neighboring businesses could benefit from that as well, whether it's in terms of food purchases, but it also empowers these communities to have thriving economic activity if we have a bit of decentralization in how we work as well too. So to me, there are some advantages that should be explored, and I don't think we should say it's impossible, but let's try and see how we can make it work, because to me it's in the interest of all when we consider some of our overall national objectives, as well as how it redounds to the employee in the end as well too.
You seem as though you all have been ahead of the curve in even thinking about what the implications are one way or the other.
Well, I mean, at HERMAT, we do have a board of thinkers, critical thinkers, and at the end of the day, we always want to be on the forefront of national issues, Andy, recognizing as practitioners, we have a responsibility to the organizations that we represent to ensure that we are setting them on the right strategic direction in terms of what the trends are showing. I think any good HR practitioner out there will be monitoring global issues as well as domestic issues and making recommendations to the employers that will embrace some of these new trends or some of the new that is being birthed out of this whole experience. So some things are not trends, some things are here permanently going forward. So we have to embrace it and understand that a whole revolution is taking place, and it's not the first, it's the fourth. And we are going to experience this again going forward because societies evolve. We moved from, when we look at manufacturing and the evolution that took place there in terms of the Industrial Revolution and how we have machinery and robots now doing a lot of manufacturing. Why can't we now embrace some of these things that really have a material impact on the lives of people? Hermat and HR is in the business of people management, and these are things that impact people on a daily basis. So therefore, we have to consider these things as an association and as individual practitioners going forward, and make the recommendations. As practitioners, we ought not to be afraid to sit with our leadership and say, here what, this is what is happening, and let's prepare our managers for it, to become better people managers, even in a hybrid world, because that is what is required at this point in time. And there is a challenge with some managers and their ability to even manage normally when we all working together in an office. You know, far less if they have to manage in a hybrid or fully remote workspace, not understanding that the guidelines and the steps towards performance management will have to shift. It means you have to upgrade and upskill yourself in order to be able to do so. And any manager or practitioner out there that is not doing that, then it is a disadvantage to their organizations, right? Because the organizations now will be left behind. That is the reality, Andy.
Yeah, and to what extent it is also a reality that the discussions are taking place now in what to some extent is a toxic environment between workers and their representative unions and the state as employers, given what is happening on the industrial relations front as to where negotiations are and so on. I don't think that is a negative and maybe, you know, just will create unnecessary challenges to discussing this as a more permanent feature in the workplace.
Well, I think, to be honest, not enough conversations are happening, right, with all parties. The tripartite arrangements have fallen apart. And because there's a heavy focus right now on percentages, and we spoke about this in the past, where it's all about negotiating for improvements in basic salary. To me, there's conversations necessary around these issues as well that could have a significant impact positively on the employee just the same. And not enough conversations is happening on these subject matters as well. We tend to hear a lot about percentage and advocacy around salary increases, but not understanding that if these things were implemented, it does have a positive impact, because, I mean, we don't have data, unfortunately, in Trinidad and Tobago as it relates to the financial savings to both the employee and the employer embracing a hybrid workspace, for example. The US have shown, data has shown in the US, that an employee could save as much as $4,000 annually by not having to commute, by not having to buy food, for example, on a daily basis. And there's data around that in terms of the savings, in terms of not having to buy work uniforms and work clothes. I mean, naturally, you have to prepare yourself for meetings like how I'm dressed appropriately for this interview this morning. Mm-hmm. So that still must be maintained, but the expense or the pressure to have new work clothing and all of that shifts. The employer also have some savings as well. We're seeing, for example, and I know people here in Trinidad and Tobago who have given up their offices in Port of Spain. So there's a reduction in overhead costs in terms of renting, right? Renting office spaces and all of that. In terms of consumables, the use of utility, reduction in paper. I mean, there's so much savings to both the employer and the employee that if there was a consideration for embracing the new way of working going forward, we could definitely, in terms of when all parties come together, iron out the advantages and disadvantages and come up with a win-win situation for everyone. But it requires all parties coming together with an open mind and also in the interest of what is best for the organization, naturally, and for the employee as well, too. And what benefits the organization automatically redounds to the employee. I think we must understand that if we have thriving, successful businesses, employees will benefit from that in some way or the other. So why not support initiatives like this in terms of looking at creating more flexibility in the workspace that could actually work if managed appropriately as well. So yes, we need to have more conversations, and not enough is happening at this point in time.
Well, and you think that it may help, or it doesn't matter when we introduce, or when this issue is introduced onto the table on top of my sense is that there's still too much of a feeling of toxicity in the current environment between labor and government as it is now over the percentage issue?
Well, the thing is, somebody have to extend an olive branch, right? To say, here what, let's really let's talk, you know. But when we get positional and we see sometimes people take positions on both sides, positions are taken, and it really results in an unhealthy arrangement where we cannot now talk about other things because there's a standoff. When positions are taken, it leads to a standoff and other conversations fall off the table. And we're seeing that happening because there's a standoff over a percentage. Other things, we unfortunately cannot move on to other things. And in my days of negotiating, I'm no longer in a unionized environment, but when I was, we revisited every single article in that collective agreement to look at other ways, because at that point in time, the union was asking for 25%. That was not possible, right? We eventually settled at 7%. And we looked at improvements in other articles in the collective agreement that benefited the employees in that organization. And sometimes that is what is absolutely necessary. Look at other things that could be beneficial, that would even result in savings to the employee as well, and automatically impact that bottom line, which is the improvement in the percentage that everybody is looking for. So if I could work remotely and be appropriately managed, right? Getting all my deliverables, and I could now go into my kitchen and have my meal, so I don't have to purchase food anymore. I don't have to rush out the office. Most of the time when we're rushing to get into work for a particular time, we don't even have breakfast, right? Or we often now have to purchase. So if I could have that kind of benefit, and that's one simple, I'm keeping it simple with my examples, right? If I could have that one simple benefit, that improves my standard of living significantly as well. If by me being at home, I could now pick up my children and don't have to pay for transportation and all of that, that helps me at the end of the day and improves my bottom line. So that's why sometimes we need to look at other areas in the agreements that we could enhance or improve that wouldn't be an automatic cash outlay to the employer, and the government is an employer just the same, right? And the largest employer that, so you have to consider the big output in terms of, or cash flow in terms of the back pay that is associated with it. And that is why, to me, I keep saying that collective agreements need to be current, because we are talking about past periods, and we still have 2 or 3 more past periods to bring it into current times. Why not keep it current so that you don't have that financial impact as well?
Right.
So it's incumbent on all parties and in the interest of the health of the organization that parties come together, because the union cannot exist without the employer, employees can't exist without the employer can't exist without employees. So to me, it's mutually beneficial to all if we could sit and talk freely and with come to the table with clean hands, as they would say, you know, without hidden agendas, and resolve the issues, resolve that standoff that we have at the moment.
Well, it's very much to go on what you have laid out here, a whole platform as to how this thing can be taken forward. Thank you very much for talking with us on that issue.
Thank you, Andy, for the invitation always.
Very welcome. Cavell Joseph Centroma, President of the Human Resource Management Association of Trinidad and Tobago. Let's take a quick look around, well, not a look around the region, but our first installment in that on this edition of the program. We're going to Guyana, the International Decade of People of African Descent. There's an assembly which has sought legal advice in the face of the government's continued harassment, latest being the withholding of its subvention. News Source Guyana has a report on that.
Forced to downsize its operations due to a lack of funding, the Coordinating Council of the International Decade for People of African Descent Assembly Guyana is currently seeking legal advice on government's decision to withhold its monthly subvention of $8 million. The move has crippled the operations of the organization ICNTT and has left it in the red to the tune of $10.5 million.
Given the apparent attempt to discontinue the subvention, legal advice is being sought.
Chairman of ICNTT's Coordinating Council, Vincent Alexander. Mr. Alexander anticipates that legal advice on the matter could be provided by the end of next week. The organization's coordinating council is convinced that government's decision to withhold the subventions for the months of September and October is as a result of the organization's decision to publish an advertisement by the Coffee 250 Committee promoting its annual forum, which was held under the theme Resisting the Emerging Apartheid State in Guyana. Alexander explained that 2 days after that advertisement was published on ICNTT's website, the Ministry of Culture, Youth and Sports on the 19th of August directed the organization to submit its audited financial records and articles of incorporation to the ministry. Mr. Alexander said that on that same day, the Vice President, Bharat Jagdeo, waved pages of the submitted documents at a press conference, while accusing the organization of being a private company which received and misappropriated government subvention to the tune of $500 million. As was done in the past, Mr. Alexander, in refuting the claims made by the Vice President, clarified that a $500 million subvention was received over a 5-year period. He said, contrary to the notion peddled by the Vice President, the organization disbursed $10 million in grants between 2018 and 2020, and not a mere $343,000 as the Vice President stated. He said ICNTT has always been open, transparent, and accountable in the conduct of its affairs. He said notwithstanding the organization's move to set the record straight, it was further harassed by the Ministry of Culture.
The harassment of an attempt to silence ICNTT was taken to another level on August 31st, when the Minister of Culture, Youth and Sports wrote to ICNTT instructing that all of its financial records, including payment vouchers, payroll, contracts, and receipts for expenditure, be handed over to the ministry.
Alexander said that Culture Minister Charles Ramson Jr. was advised that the Ministry of Finance's Central Internal Audit Unit had already audited the organization's financial records for the period 2018 to 2021. A copy of the report was submitted to the ministry, with the organization expressing a willingness to have its 2022 records audited by a mutually agreed auditor.
We're going to take a break now. On the other side of that, we're coming back with a discussion about what this lady says is the unnecessary overabundance of stray pets, cats and dogs in particular, across the streets in Trinidad and Tobago. Why is that? We get back to that discussion with Catherine Cleghorn, president of an organization called Animal Alive. Stay with us.
It's Diwali time again, and that means delicious vegetarian cuisine. Chief has all your herbs and spices for Diwali. Curry, jeera, saffron, garam masala, and more for all your talkari. Cinnamon, clove, nutmeg, ginger, and cardamom for those delectable sweets. Brown rice, dal, and chana for those tasty delicacies. And of course, Chief baking powder for soft and light roti. This Diwali, remember, the Chief reason is always taste.
What's the best way to grab the attention of viewers?
Please exercise more patience. You have to be kidding me.
Doing what we do best.
I'll say at the very least it's a conspiracy of laziness against the people.
Join me, Keaton Shaw.
And me, Sean Michael Small, for Talking Point.
Weekdays from 8 a.m. to 9:30 a.m.
We go in-depth on the trending issues and engage the most controversial newsmakers
as we get them to account to the people for their actions.
You can't go to the government with nothing. You can't go to cabinet with an empty hand, with a wish.
I'm glad that we're having this a sober, mature discussion.
In the present situation, I expect a continuation of the chaos.
Join us for the discussion, Mondays to Fridays,
only on WESN,
the content capital.
FanZone, your reliable, authentic supplier, has just gotten better. You can now visit our website www.fanzonett.com for your authentic wear and collectibles. The only place where you can use both your Visa debit and credit cards. Visit our website fanzonett.com to make your purchase today.
Very first day they opened, my mother and my father and I came in here. I love to see it. It's neat, really, really neat.
You know, we have many sections in Price Club. The food court section is a variety here. any one of them you ask, they are very helpful. I love it.
We get low price, specials, and everything every day.
Prices are very, very good. It's cheaper than everywhere I've been.
Every word, every line, every paragraph depicts a real moment in someone's life. A father, a sister, a mother, a brother. We at Newsday are dedicated to you, the people, and through independent, unwavering journalism, strive to always bring your stories to life. Because your stories are more than just words. Newsday, independent and credible.
With society plagued by a host of issues, with debates surrounding our urgent concerns falling short, with questions of our future not always being answered.
The conversation continues. Join me, Kemuel Pascal, as the voice of the youth comes to life. We will confront the controversial topics of today's world to gain answers that are key for a better tomorrow. One and One with me, Kemuel Pascal. Wednesdays at 10 a.m. Only on WESN, Content Capital.
The best for your baby is at thebesttoys.com. From the best strollers, car seats, baby carriers, high chairs, booster seats, rockers, jumpers and bouncers, walkers, baby blankets, feeding accessories, bathtubs. Visit us in-store at Forces Flagship McLean. Shop online now at thebesttoys.com. Order via call or WhatsApp at 332-BABY. And remember, we have the best toys at the best prices.
Welcome back to the program on this edition. A moment from now, we'll be talking with Ms. Catherine Clegon. She's president of an organization called Animal Alive. It's about the over-preponderance, you would say, of stray dogs and cats across the country. Why is that the case? We'll get to her in a bit, but let's continue a look around the region at this point. Now we go to Jamaica for this feature. Constable Noel Maitland is charged with the murder of his girlfriend. He was denied bail, and there's a report on this from TVJ.
Constable Noel Maitland, who is charged with the murder of his girlfriend Donnelly Donaldson, was this morning denied bail when he appeared in the Home Circuit Court. Justice Vinette Graham Allen, who is presiding over the case, denied the application on the basis that the court is satisfied that there are substantial grounds for believing that Constable Maitland would fail to surrender to custody and that he will interfere with witnesses. Maitland was arrested on July 27 following the disappearance of 24-year-old Donaldson, who was last seen at his New Kingston apartment on July 11. She was reported missing on July 13. He was subsequently charged with murder after investigators reported that they had collected forensic evidence in the apartment pointing to her death. Maitland is to return to court on February 9, 2023 for a plea and a case management hearing.
All right, so let's take a look at what's happening in Antigua now, where a mother is set to press charges following an incident that involves her son. Our report now from ABS TV.
Now, the mother of a teenage victim of bullying says she will be pressing charges against the perpetrators. Her son was recently targeted in an incident captured on video and has since gone viral on social media platforms. Meanwhile, the Family and Social Services Division has condemned the actions of the perpetrators. The video posted on Facebook shows a teenage boy whose face we have blurred because of the nature of the incident being ridiculed by other males. The video, which is less than 30 seconds in duration, shows the victim was asked to recite what could be regarded as an offensive phrase. And when he refused, he was hit with an unidentified object. The teenager was visibly shaken by the assault and began to cry. The individuals present could be heard laughing and insisting he repeat the offensive phrase. Now, Fiona Charles Richards, upon seeing the video, tells ABS bullying entails the insidious practice of preying on the weak.
I find that very often that there are persons who may project their own hurts on others, who they assume are less able to fight back, and so as a result of that, those are things that will happen. So what I would want to ask is, where are the adults around during that time? And so that is some concerns for me, because if there are adults around, why didn't no one step in?
She says when incidents like this occur, there are questions to be asked about the perpetrators.
All of our children are going through so many things already. Some are being physically abused, and so they go out and abuse others. They project their hurt onto others. A lot of our children are going through several things, and so you don't know what will be the last straw. You don't know where someone...
The director also explains adults need to be mindful that their actions could influence this type of antisocial behavior.
It could also be that children are just doing what they see in adults' behavior as well. So we have to also ask our questions, what are the examples that we are setting for our children? Whereas back then, you know, you make a joke or a hard joke and it was culturally accepted as part of a norm. But the way in which our generation is functioning in terms of bullying each other, it is not. It is an attack on the person's whole person because they are presumed as being lesser than or weaker than.
Meanwhile, his mother tells our news center she has been in contact with the police who have commenced their probe into the incident. She says she will take her son to seek medical attention ahead of the police taking further action in the matter.
All right, so we go to Grenada now, where the Grenada Broadcasting Network is telling us about a situation in which workers at the Grenada Corporate Nutmeg Association protested in front of their receiving stations in several places in Grenville, in Union, Hermitage, Mali, and Guave. Here's that report.
Daily paid workers of the Grenada Cooperative Nutmeg Association protested for 1 hour in front of their receiving stations throughout the island on Tuesday to express their discontent with the management of the GCNA. President of the Bank and General Workers Union, Joseph Mitchell, says that as the union representing the workers, they are disappointed with the constant postponement by management of GCNA to negotiate a new collective agreement on behalf of workers.
Currently, this agreement, the last agreement, expired about 5 years ago, right? So just around November 2017. It's normally a 3-year agreement, so you can see here that it's 5 years old. And despite the fact that we have had a pandemic, right, and the union had been very understanding in terms of that period, but around December last year, we sought to recommence negotiation. What happened is that we have had 3 rounds of negotiation, December, April, and July. And between that, we had tremendous difficulty actually getting them to come to the table within those periods.
Mitchell says that while they have made some strides in the 3 sittings they had between December of last year to June this year, it has been difficult to get the managing body of GCNA to continue the negotiations.
In the month of August, they postponed. In the month of September, they postponed. And you may ask why the protest today? Because actually today should have been another round of negotiation. And for some unknown reason, again, they postponed it. Workers are frustrated because, of course, we understand the high cost of living, the cost of electricity, and all these things. And workers are struggling. They are operating still on 2017 salaries. And they are, workers at the lower end of the salary scale. So, of course, they are very much affected, and they're very much dissatisfied with the whole attitude in terms of the consideration that GCNA is given to them.
The union president said all workers at all nutmeg receiving stations protested as a sign of unity. The workers and union representative is calling on the management of Grenada Cooperative Nutmeg Association to stop stalling and come to the negotiation table.
We have asked all the stations at this time to come out in solidarity of others, right? So we expect it to be in Grenville, in Hermitage, in Mali, and in Union, and here at Guav. The issue here is not that the management is saying, look, we cannot afford to do this or we cannot do the other. The issue is that they're just not willing to come to the table. They're finding it important to do everything else rather than coming to the table to discuss the situation of the workers. It tells us where the workers are in terms of their priority list. And this is not really sending a good signal.
GBN sought comment from GCNA General Manager Senator Roderick St. Clair and the Speaker of the House and the Chairman of GCNA, Mr. Leo Cato, on the matter. However, all attempts proved futile.
We want to take you to St. Lucia now and get this report from HTS News Force, where they're talking about activities in preparation for what is called a Fire Prevention Week, continuing at a girls' primary school there.
Does your child know what to do in case there is a fire? The St. Lucia Fire Service has been enlightening young minds about the importance of fire escape plans. Fire officers this week stopped by the Labrie RC Girls Primary School to offer some life-saving tips.
We are going through our schools, from primary to secondary schools around the island. We are at Labrie Girls today, trying to impact information on safety and prevention, knowing how do you get out in case of an emergency, having 2 ways out of every section of your home or commercial establishment.
The expectation is that the youngsters will impart the newfound knowledge on friends, households and communities.
These students were given information not only for themselves but parents, installing smoke alarms on every level of your home, outside your bedrooms, and installing at least one fire extinguisher if there is an emergency of fire that you as a homeowner or business owner can actually suppress a small fire in case you do have that emergency.
Principal of the Labrie RC Girls Primary School, Donna Peter Joseph, says students were engaged in the interactive session.
The students are also very, very responsive. I am proud of them. You should have heard the way they have responded, from the kindergarteners up. They've been able to say what to do in case there is a fire. They've been able to identify what it is that they need in their homes to prevent a fire or to be alerted in the event of a fire. And I think it is fitting to say thank you to the Fire Prevention Department, particularly Mr. Iriste, for a job well done. Like I said, we have learned much from what they have said to us today, and we wish them well for the rest of the week and just in the professional lives generally. So on behalf of Labrie Girls Primary School, I say thank you once more to the St. Lucia Fire Service.
Safety officers worldwide are observing Fire Prevention Week under the theme, Fire Won't Wait, Plan Your Escape.
We'll be back in a moment. Stay with us.
FanZone, your reliable, authentic supplier, has just gotten better. You can now visit our website www.fanzonett.com for your authentic wear and collectibles. The only place where you can use both your Visa debit and credit cards. Visit our website fanzonett.com to make your purchase today.
Is it politics? What is it that nobody cares about sports?
The kind of support that sport used to get in the past is no longer here.
The thing is, taking a knee doesn't mean that that's the only thing you're doing on it.
Right.
Taking a knee along with other stuff.
Samantha, what are you looking forward to when you return home to Trinidad and Tobago after winning the title?
Thank you very much for speaking it into existence.
Is it no pressure on Nicholas Ball?
It makes me more motivated to work hard and to go out there and rep the white and black.
Why are we sending a team to the Winter Olympics?
There are a number of Trinbagonians who are in the diaspora and have grown up in winter sport. It's an opportunity that the Trinidad and Tobago Olympic Committee will not close the door on.
I also believe in the players that we have. Once you can motivate the players, you can get the best out of them.
Welcome back to the program. Well, let's tell you this. There's an incessant barrage of requests for shelters to take in animals. Let's leap back to the root of this problem. Why is there such a huge unwanted pet population? Is this ignorance, indifference, or cost? Even if it is not one of, or a combination, the unwanted pet population is unprecedented, and the devaluing of these little lives is evidenced everywhere by neglect, suffering, abandonment, and death. That's taken from an article which was carried in the papers a couple of days ago by this lady, Catherine Cleghorn. She's president of an organization called Animal Alive. She runs an animal center. She's one of those people looking after the business of the protection, the care and welfare of animals in our midst. Ms. Cleghorn, thanks for talking with us on this issue. Let's get to it. You say that it is a combination of these things here, neglect, devaluation or undervaluing of animals in our midst. Let's talk about that. You say there's a preponderance of stray animals about the place.
Yes, Andy, there is a preponderance of stray animals, and the question is why? Why? Everything links back to the irresponsibility of humans. And let's go straight to the main stakeholder, which is the government. The government needs to get engaged. They need to get switched on as the main stakeholder for animal welfare.
Yeah, cats and dogs, you say that's a real problem.
Yes, cats and dogs, companion animals.
Yeah. When you say the government needs to get to the bottom of it, what do you think that is happening? What do you know that is not happening that should be happening as regards
well,
this
in
issue?
to the letter that I wrote, we are saying as the advocates for animal welfare that the government is the main stakeholder and they must help us to shape a national plan. Once there is animal welfare built into policy, built into practice, then the civilians are going to adhere to best practices. The main stakeholder, the government, has to lead. They have to get switched on because it is very difficult for NPOs to be able to take a gigantic role in this extremely difficult scenario. At this point, because we have upgraded laws, but very little enforcement, and humans are allowed to act with impunity, these animals are left to the mercy of humans. And as a result, we have a number of dogs that are unspayed and cats. And so with this preponderance of animals that are homeless in our society, in our communities, in our streets, all over this country, then their lives are devalued. And we are saying that enough is enough because the small solution that shelters offer, that rescuers offer, is now beleaguered, and it is now almost impossible to make a difference in this space.
Because there's a scarcity of space in shelters?
Oh, definitely space has run out. We are now going into overload.
Has been any feedback to that article you wrote? Because there is you would say it may not be huge, but there's a real determined sort of conscience-driven community looks after the welfare of animals in the country, not so?
Well, basically that care is left up to NPOs, non-profit organizations. There would be independent rescuers. There would be more organized rescuers like ourselves and Animals 360 and even TNT, SPCA. But the fact of the matter is that we are now all in overload. We are all now in crisis because we are now unable to help. And once we reach the stage where we are unable to help, you would understand that the problem only increases, it exacerbates.
Yeah, indifference or ignorance or cost. You think there's an equality of the issues among those three, or there are one or two that might be?
Oh, no,
yeah.
they are all, it's on a plateau. Indifference meaning because there is no animal welfare policy built into our society, because it's not backed up by any government policy or national policy, it means that people don't really care. They don't really fully understand because there was a lack of awareness and education and sensitivity. And so that is where the indifference comes from, because they don't understand the value of the animals' lives, or they don't understand that they are responsible for little lives and there are certain care and conditions that they must take. And ignorance comes from the lack of education and awareness that has been, the modus operandi. And cost, of course, because a spay can cost anywhere from 400 to 1,000 more. And some people simply do not have that. So we are saying that it is now incumbent upon the government in a plan going forward to work along with the welfare organizations to at least start a program where the spaying and neutering can be done for free, at least for 2 years, to bring the situation under control. And then after that, because it is not going to be a program that is done for free, it has a cost date, and we're asking the government to fit that bill. After 2 years, then we can take a look at persons having to pay for it at a reduced price or a subsidized price. But it is very important that something is done, because as a society, this is one of the aspects. This negligence and abandonment and cruelty is one of the aspects why we are such a violent society. And we need to stop it.
Well, how do you make that connection between the violent nature of this? Yeah.
Between violence and animal neglect.
Yes, and the way in which we treat animals.
Part of the neglect is cruelty. Part of the neglect is the lack of care and concern, the lack of love, the lack of appreciation, the lack of compassion. And once those qualities are taught and nurtured and insisted upon and even backed up by law, our society becomes more compassionate, not only to one another, but also to the animals, also to the planet. Everything is linked. Everything comes full circle.
To the best of your knowledge, I mean, given your experience and advocacy and in this area, which is the government agency and who is the government person who should be seeking to lead the charge in addressing an issue such as this?
So that's a very good question. At this point, there's really no ministry that looks after the welfare of animals, because it's not even a part of any ministry. It would perhaps come under the Ministry of Local Government, but right now and ever since historically, they have been responsible for the capture and euthanization of stray animals. It is about time that their portfolio rises above that. That is not even something they should consider. That is an old primitive practice that needs to be done away with. Or it can come under the Ministry of Agriculture, because they too deal with animals and livestock.
Yeah. You know, they would, in my growing up as a boy, that was a big thing in those, or part of the culture and the practice in those days. You see the dog catcher vehicles coming around, and you know, it used to be interesting to watch how they would go after catching stray dogs and them kind of things. But so we've gone past that, but nothing has been put in place sort of officially to address this issue that you're talking about here.
No, nothing. You know, another ministry that would be impacted positively would be the Ministry of Tourism, because tourists call us all the time, and they are scandalized at the numbers of stray dogs and stray cats in our country, and they are determined never to return because the state of these animals is a real deterrent for them to return.
Yeah, in the absence of knowing exactly, well, who to whom this kind of appeal is targeted, and who do you expect to, you might have expected to hear from, who do you think should be responding to this?
That's a very good question too. I think I hope to God that we're not just making cries in the wind, but we are appealing to first the Prime Minister. We've written him several times. We've gotten very little response, of course, but we need to start engaging the top politicians. The the Attorney General, the previous one, was in a couple of meetings with animal advocates. We're yet to meet with this new AG. So we would want to target the top echelon of the government. Maybe they could decide exactly under which umbrella animal welfare comes. But it's urgent and it's important.
Yeah, but just briefly, what are some of the other issues that are there for discussion and for sort of advocacy about the question of the welfare of animals in Trinidad and Tobago, the state of affairs with animals in the country, and in the sense that,
you know, Animals 360 is one of the NPOs that has been sponsoring spays and neuters for companion animals, for underprivileged, for companion animals that come from underprivileged homes. In other words, those who really cannot afford to pay for that spay and neuter, for stray animals, for the capture and sometimes the release. Animals 360 is a very successful organization in terms of helping with getting those animals getting that situation under control. But if, for example, we are looking at the numbers of, an average of the numbers of households that have animals in Trinidad and Tobago, let's say it's 50%, let's say it's a little over 50%. It is a paltry figure of animals that come from these homes that are spayed and neutered. So one of the real issues that would impact upon us solving this problem is helping animals get spayed and neutered. Another important part of this whole problem is breeders and the breeding of dogs for sale. It is very disappointing the way people would think. They think that buying a dog in a pet store or from a breeder is the thing to do when there are so many hundreds and even thousands of animals out there for adoption. It is very disappointing as well how discriminating some persons can be when they are about to select a pet. They want a furry pet, they want a pet with blue eyes, they want a pet, they want a pedigree pet.
All right, we're going to have to leave it there. We're going to have to leave it there, Ms. Cleghorn. Thank you very much.
All right. Thank you, Andy.
You're very welcome, Catherine Cleghorn, President of Animal Alive, one of the animal welfare organizations in the country. Well, we don't have time to share with you the watch list for this edition of the program. We'll leave that for another time. That's where we have to put a wrap on it. We thank you for watching. We thank our guests. We tell you that in half an hour, we'll have news on the top of the hour, followed by today's edition of Talking Point with Shah and Small. But for now, I'm Andy Johnson. We'll see you tomorrow.
WESN.
Diwali Passport, brought to you by Benjamin Moore.
If these walls could talk, they'd cry uncle. They didn't plan to become offices or yoga studios. But they've stood by us, even when we got a little stir-crazy. For that, they deserve some thanks. They deserve Benjamin Moore.
The Festival of Lights glows once again in many nations. Let's take a trip and find the interesting variations. Some are quiet and simple, and others filled with family and friends. Join us now for Diwali Passport on WESN. Our passports are stamped, and we're all set to fly away to another Diwali adventure. On this trip, we go to a most popular island nation in Europe, the United Kingdom. The UK, or Britain, is located off the northwestern coast of mainland Europe and is made up of England, Wales, Scotland, and the northern portion of the island of Ireland. The Hindu presence is strong in the UK, and historically, Indians arrived in England in 3 waves. The first was in 1947, during India's independence and partition. This included soldiers from the British Army after World War II. The second happened in the 1970s, when Idi Amin expelled Indians out of Uganda, East Africa. And the third wave of migration began in the 1990s, driven by the UK's education policy. Although most British Hindus relocated from India, a large percentage also came from Sri Lanka and other countries. After Christianity and Islam, Hinduism is the 3rd largest religion in the United Kingdom. With over 800,000 followers, Diwali is a major celebration here, not just for Hindus, but also for Jains, Sikhs, and Buddhists. The city of Leicester boasts of the biggest Diwali celebrations outside of India. The festivities begin with the lighting up of Belgrave Road on Leicester's popular Golden Mile, followed by a variety of entertainment on stage during the 2 weeks of events. Visitors also enjoy the Diwali Bazaar, Rangoli exhibition, and waterside celebrations, along with a huge fireworks display on Diwali Day. This activity attracts up to 40,000 spectators of all religions. Another popular spot in Leicester is the Diwali Village on Cossington Street, which, like Belgrave Road, is filled with shopping, entertainment, food, and all the exciting activities. And over in London, the famous Trafalgar Square hosts its own celebration called Dots, Diwali on Trafalgar Square, which is the biggest in London. But one of the biggest highlights of the Trafalgar Diwali celebration is a visit to the famous Neasden Temple. With stunning architecture and intricate design, it was built from over 5,000 tons of hand-carved stone and is the first traditional Hindu temple in Europe. Here, worshippers, visitors, and business owners offer prayers for success in the new year ahead. Other vibrant festivities in the UK also take place at Wembley Park, with live performances, a stunning lantern parade, and more. The National Maritime Museum in Greenwich, and the list goes on. In neighbouring Wales, there are also a number of Diwali events staged by the Sri Swaminarayan Temple in Cardiff, the Wales Millennium Centre, the Welsh Government, and others. In the capital of Wales, fireworks would light up the sky over the city centre near the Principality Stadium. Next door in Scotland, it's an interesting scene on the streets of Edinburgh as they put on a Diwali parade featuring a marching band, bagpipers, dancers, stage shows, and a fireworks finale at Princess Street Gardens. From Glasgow to Edinburgh Castle, buildings and homes are decorated with lights and rangoli designs. In Northern Ireland, there are numerous events as well, from the leading multicultural arts organization, the Dublin City Council. And in Belfast, the capital city, there is a fireworks show. In 2011, Northern Ireland even fused their traditions of Diwali and Samhain to create the UK's first and only Indo-Celtic festival. Originating as a small community event in the north of Belfast, the festival has rapidly expanded into a major civic celebration. Thank you for coming along with us on our Diwali trip to the UK. I'm Shamji. Join us for another adventure soon, here on WESN's Diwali Passport.
If these walls could talk, they'd cry, "Uncle." They didn't plan to become offices or yoga studios, but they've stood by us, even when we got a little stir-crazy. For that, they deserve some thanks. They deserve Benjamin Moore.
Diwali Passport, brought to you by Benjamin Moore.
I'm Keaton Shaw, and we are WESN, the content capital. What's the best way to grab the attention of viewers? Please exercise more patience. You have to be kidding me.
Doing what we do best. I'll say at the very least it's a conspiracy of laziness against the people.
Join me, Keaton Shaw.
And me, Sean Michael Small, for Talking Point.
Weekdays from 8 a.m. to 9:30 a.m.
We go in-depth on the trending issues and engage the most controversial newsmakers
as we get them to account